Yes, we are all still waiting for the Crosswind alpha test to go live, but thankfully, while we wait, we do have some new info drops from the Crosswind crew to keep us sated until we can finally get into that alpha playtest that we have all been waiting for. They dropped devblog number 4, and I think there are some really short but sweet takeaways from it, and I wanted to just go over them really quickly. So this one, as I said, is going to be short and sweet, but it's going to get into some things that I think are pretty important involving Crosswind. First of which being, I think when a game comes into early access, it's really important to know what kind of a game it is, but it's also really important to know what kind of a game it isn't. So with hopes of better informing your decision, I will let you know now that the Crosswind crew has come out and said that Crosswind will not be a pirate simulation. While the game will draw from some popular pirate lore and history, it will also have its own diverging storyline, which the developers went into more depth about in the devblog. As you can see here, the blog says that the game will have a historic core from the 16th to 18th centuries. So from Columbus's first landfall to the final decades of the Age of Sail, key events they can take footnotes from with historical records. So that will be their baseline historic core for the game. And then we have the Crosswind Divergence, which will range from the 8th century AD all the way through the 1700s, with most key events concentrated towards the latter. A sweeping fictional arc woven atop the historical world, beginning with whispers of ancient maritime empires and carrying forward through secret cults, lost charts, and supernatural lore, all while threading tightly into the age of gunpowder and sail. So the thing that is really interesting to me about that is that it says 8th century AD. That is so long ago. That's like ancient, as it says, ancient maritime empires. So that's going to be really cool to dig into. So as I said, the key takeaway there is that Crosswind is not going to be a pirate simulator. It is not going to be historically accurate. The developers mentioned in this developer blog that the ships will be tall, so they will still be based around history, but they will kind of go off on their own vibe. They'll have their own style. So those of you who hoped that Crosswind might be an historically accurate pirate game, I have to say that it won't be, and maybe that will help you gauge your expectations as we near its early access, help you decide if or if not you want to buy in. So to get a little deeper into the historical aspect of it, the historical base of the game, it will mention, as we just saw here, it'll mention stuff like Columbus, so he's obviously a popular, I wouldn't say popular, I'd say well-known historic figure. We also have the mention of Blackbeard, who is going to be running a pirate faction. That is my second takeaway from this dev blog, is that we will have factions, and the first one we are being introduced to is that of Blackbeard. We already saw part of his faction in the first boss video that we got, where we fought Hands. Now those of you who are up on your pirate lore, we all know that this is a reference to Israel Hands, who is Blackbeard's second in command. He also appeared in one of my favorite books of all time, Treasure Island. Israel Hands, he was in Treasure Island, so gotta love all those references. But anyway, we've already seen what a boss battle from Blackbeard's pirate faction would look like. What the developers have said exactly about factions is that factions and conflicts focus on a concise group of rival powers, each playing a central role in the unfolding narrative. Alright, so that's two main key takeaways. 1, not a pirate sim. 2, there will be pirate factions, one of which we already have a look at with Blackbeard and Israel Hands. And now we will move into the next part, which kind of ties in with number 1, which is that the game will be like a low pirate fantasy. I wouldn't call it high fantasy because the developer blog mentions that they're going to stay away from dragons and fireballs, which to me would be high fantasy, but that they are going to focus on pirate and maritime myths like cursed gold, ghost ships, and whispered tales of lost islands. So with that, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw some mythical sea creatures, maybe some kraken, some leviathan, some giant squid, maybe a giant white whale. So stuff like that would fit with me, like mermaids, sirens, just really cool, fun pirate lore that you could probably find in some captain's logbook somewhere. And to add on to that, because technology is a very important part of survival games, and considering the historical or more fantasy version of things, we know now that technology will cover the Age of Sail, so rum, gunpowder, clashing steel, flintlocks, and blunderbusses, with a hint of fantasy such as ancient curses or unexplained phenomena. So like as we saw in the screenshots, there are like these ancient hunter looking type creatures that show up. So I'm assuming that might be the extent of some of the magic. So kind of earthy magic, it would seem like. So there's 3 takeaways there. The next one is just going to be a really quick one. Let me see if I can find it here. Okay, so this next one is just going to be literally a 1-sentence little update, and that is just that biomes will begin in the Cradle of Piracy, the Caribbean, and include distinct sets of enemies, resources, and challenges. Future updates will expand into new regions. So the takeaway there is that we will get updates that do expand new regions, which is expected for an early access title. And my last, but certainly not least of importance takeaway here is that exploration was mentioned, and exploration, as the developers say, they want it to be quietly meaningful, which I really like. So they give an example of seeing a twisted tree, and the tree itself should be interesting enough that it makes you want to go explore it. And once you explore that tree, maybe you find something that leads you down a quest line. The Crosswind crew says they want discovery to feel personal, earned, and quietly meaningful. I am a huge fan of this because I am so sick of seeing quest markers above heads. There's no challenge to it, you know where you need to go. There's no sense of discovery because you already have a beacon sending you directly where you need to be. I like that they say they want it to feel earned. There are some games that do that really well, and then there are other games that just make it a brain dead experience where you don't have to use your brain at all. As they said, they want discovery and exploration to feel quietly meaningful. So it's not going to be some huge fanfare. It's just going to be like, oh, hey, that's a cool thing. I wonder what it leads to. As they said, what's that twisted tree doing out there? I need to see it for myself. So that sounds really cool to me. I'm very excited to see that happening. So those were my main takeaways from the developer blog. Hopefully that can keep us tided over until we can actually get into the playtest. To sign off, I am going to leave you with a snippet from the actual story we're going to be playing. The developers have been kind enough to give us a small introduction to the storyline we're going to be starting. So you guys ready? Here we go. The British East India Company comes into possession of several missing pages from Columbus's Book of Prophecies, where he describes a treasure that could grant control over the seas. During an expedition, their team uncovers the first fragment and sends it back to London. The information leaks. Edward Teach, better known as Blackbeard, hears of the cargo and orders his lieutenant, Israel Hands, to intercept the ship. You are the courier entrusted with transporting it. So that is the story as it begins. And it fits into the screenshots I showed in my last video because there is a screenshot where it looks like you are in a starting area on a sinking, fiery ship. So that goes hand in hand with Israel Hands trying to intercept the ship you are on, and so that's how things start. I am so excited to see where the story progresses from there. So that is my quick Crosswind update for you all. Yes, we are still waiting on the playtest. I, of course, will keep you updated. I have a wedding to go to this Friday, and the Crosswind developers seem to like dropping news on Fridays, so I may be a little late with coverage on that one. So that is it for me today, guys. What do you guys think of this little info drop? If you want more Crosswind videos, I will go ahead and link those here.